to our worship class. I'm Andrea McCullough. In case you don't know me, my husband Barrett is not here today. He's at home with the kids. And we have 4 children. We have 3 biological boys, and then our baby girl is adopted. And today I'm going to share part of our story and how she came to us, and then look at some scriptures on the Father's heart for us and for children. So I'm going to really summarize it. It's a long story. God did a lot to bring our little girl to us. But we had really never talked about adoption. We did not plan on growing our family through adoption. We had only ever talked about having a girl. We knew, from the time Barrett and I were dating, we talked about having a girl. We just knew we were going to have a girl. And lo and behold, we had 3 boys back to back. And I had a few friends that I knew that they just kept trying and trying until they got the girl or got the boy, and I was not going to do that. And thankfully, we didn't have to wait long. One Friday morning, we just got a phone call from an aunt who knew we wanted a girl. Remembered us talking about everybody we knew we wanted a girl. And she said, I know a family. I know a young mom who's pregnant with a little girl. She's 8 months pregnant, and she's looking for a Christian family to adopt. Are you interested? And we were just sideswiped. No idea this was God's plan. I said, well, let me talk to Barrett. It's Friday morning. He was at work. So I said, well, I can't call him at work and drop this on him. So I waited until he came home. We got the kids to bed, and we sat down on the couch, and I told him about the phone call. And he was just speechless. Like, his jaw dropped. He was speechless because we never talked about it. Normally, I'm the one who's speechless when things get dropped on me. Barrett just, flies off the cuff. But he was speechless. So I said, well, let's just sleep on it. We'll come back tomorrow. And the next day he said, why not? Why not? We've always wanted a girl, and this is a girl who needs a home. Why not? We just bought a bigger house. We had another room. We just bought a bigger car. We had room in our car. And even at that time with our business, the business was doing well. We felt like we had the funds. We had no idea how expensive it was going to be, but we weren't living paycheck to paycheck like we had been in the past. So things just started showing us this was God's plan, preparing us for this, even in, the whole process of bringing us to Redeemer. That's a really neat story of how God worked in our hearts, of leaving a church that we'd grown up with, and where we met and got married, bringing us here. So we called back the aunt. We said, give her our number. We're interested. We called a lawyer. So what do we need to start doing? And when he heard our little story, just a snippet, we had, just a few details, he was like, okay, this is not going to happen. There's a 1% chance you're getting this baby. When a mom is looking, when she's 8 months pregnant, 9 months pregnant, she's not that interested. So he said, tell your wife, don't get emotionally involved. Of course, it was too late for that. But, a few weeks passed, due date passed, and nothing happened. We never heard from birth mom. And throughout today, I'm going to refer to her as birth mom. We have a good relationship with her. We're on a first name basis, but today, and if you would like to know her name, just ask me and I'll tell you. But today, for the recording, I'm going to call her birth mom. I don't want it to sound cold or removed. And so we thought, okay, well, maybe this was just God's way of jolting us awake to the idea of adoption, But a few weeks later, we got a call late one Tuesday night, and she said, okay, that wasn't really her due date. She's still pregnant. She's still interested in meeting you. Can we give her your number? And we were like, okay, yes. We've gone through this a few times. We didn't get our hopes up, but just 10 minutes later, we got a call from the grandmother. And she said, we want to meet you. So we set up appointments. The next day, we met with our lawyer. We had a long kind of interview, hearing her story, her asking us a bunch of questions, and we just really connected. It was quite a culture shock to hear her story. She was very young. She should have just been, dealing with high school and friends and, what to do on the weekend. But instead, she was pregnant. And that was the beginning of my heart being changed, and having compassion towards mothers who find themselves in these situations. So the next day on Friday, we got paperwork to start our home study. That's a long process you have to do to be approved to take your child into your home. And I was able to spend the day with birth mom and take her to a couple doctor's appointments, and her mother, Amelia's grandmother, and take them out to dinner. We had a sweet time getting to know each other. And that night, Friday night and Saturday, we had a couple of false labor alarms. We thought we still had 2 weeks to get ready, and we had a lot to do to get ready. And we had several calls. I'm on my way to the hospital. You need to come now. And we're like, okay, just let's see what the doctor says, And I've had 3 babies. So I'm like, usually on your first one, you don't go early. In my case, I never went early. I was always late. So I did not expect that she was going to be early. And every time it was a false alarm. Well, Sunday morning, Palm Sunday, we get to church to the 8 o'clock service, and we drop our kids off. And Barrett's phone rings again. And she's the same story. I'm on my way to the doctor. I'm in labor. The baby's coming now. And by this time, Barrett's just reciting the same story. Okay, it's okay. We'll be there when it's time. Just let us know what the doctor says. And she's like, no, they're admitting me. I'm 4 centimeters. I'm having a baby right now. You need to come right now. And she had said she wanted us to be with her, and we were prepared to do it. We were totally willing, but we weren't sure what was going to happen at the time, if she was going to still feel that way when it was time. And like I said, our kids were in the nursery, and we hadn't really told anybody that we were adopting. Like this just happened. And so Barrett went to Prudence, and he said, so we're having a baby right now. Can we leave our kids with you? And she said, yes, absolutely. So we left our kids in the nursery here with Prudence and went to the hospital to St. Vincent's right around the corner. And we called Barrett's mom. We probably would have called her that afternoon to break the news gently to her. We're adopting a baby. She'll be here very soon. But instead, she got a phone call early one Sunday morning saying, we're having a baby right now, and you need to come get our kids from church, where we left them. So we got to the hospital. We were invited right into the delivery room, and I got to hold her hand as Amelia was born. Barrett was kind of in the doorway behind the curtain, but he was there through the process. She invited him to come cut the cord when it was time. She allowed us to give the hospital the name that we picked out. Just the day before, we just Googled girl names. And we landed on Amelia, which has Hebrew roots that mean work of the Lord. So she was born on Sunday afternoon, or Sunday at noon on Palm Sunday. And we were in the delivery room. We were able to stay with them all day during visitor hours. And the next day, we had a few more appointments to do for home study, but again, I was able to be at the hospital with birth mom and grandma. And this whole time, when birth mom was talking about Amelia, she would talk about her in the context of our family and placing her with us. So that showed me that in her mind, she had already placed her with us. She was already set on giving her to us. She had loved that Amelia would have so many of the things that she never had, especially that she would have 3 older brothers to watch over her, in addition to a father. And so on Tuesday was discharge day. It also happened to be the day that we were approved to take Amelia home after just 3 business days with our home study. And so once that approval came, we were able to start the process with our lawyer of termination of parental rights. And that all happened right in the same delivery room with all of us there. The lawyer came with an aide and a stenographer. Barrett and I were there. I was holding Amelia, sitting on the couch. And we just had a mountain of paperwork to get through, and he was walking us through everything, explaining everything, asking us to sign, asking us to agree to this and that. And then we finally get to that document, the TPR, termination of parental rights. And when we got there and it was time to sign, she said, I want to take her home. And we knew that was a possibility of her changing her mind. But we also knew the circumstances of her situation that were very complicated and just unfair. But that if she took Amelia home, CPS would show right up and take Amelia and put her in foster care. So we just paused and cleared the room. We all knew we can't convince her to do anything. This is her choice, and we didn't want to persuade her. But Barrett and I had a chance to just sit with her. Just remind her of her love. So when I was holding Amelia, Ariana left the room and she just started sobbing. As I said, her mind was fixed, but her heart was just breaking and actually, cutting the ties. So Barrett just rushed over and held her there in the hospital bed. And, he just stroked her hair and held her tight. And he prayed over her for courage to face the decision in front of her, for comfort. Either way, it was clear, either way it was going to be a struggle, whether she handed her over, whether she took her home. But most importantly, he reassured her of our deep love for her, no matter what she chose that day. We would never be angry with her for if she decided to take Amelia home. Our hearts were just broken that this was a decision in front of her. So we, and then Barrett said after we prayed for her, I'm sorry that you didn't have a father to protect you and love you and care for you as you needed and you deserved. And I would be honored to give that to Amelia for you. So we just sat there crying with her for a little bit longer, and then we handed Amelia back to her and we walked out of the room. And we didn't know if that was goodbye, if we'd be invited back into that room, or if we would just go home and prepare to pursue adopting Amelia after she was placed in foster care. But then eventually we were invited back into the room and picked up the paperwork where we left off, and we got back to that document. And she signed with emotion, marked emotion, that she seemed confident in her choice. And so I just want to pause right there. Whether we come from a really hard place, or just kind of a hard place, we all need that same Father's heart that just comes to sit with us wherever we are and cry with us over the pain in our life and say, no matter what you choose today, I love you and I'm here for you. That's where the Father's heart begins. That's where he meets us. He meets us in our distress. In our distress. And Romans 8:14, for those who are led by the Spirit of God are called the children of God. The Spirit you received does not make you slaves, so that you live in fear again. Rather, the Spirit you received brought about your adoption to sonship, and by him we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit himself testifies with our spirit that we are God's children. And now if we are children, then we are heirs, heirs of God and co-heirs with Christ. If indeed we share in his suffering, in order that we may also share in his glory. And so each of us, when we accept Jesus, we're adopted into his eternal family. That's the reality for all of us. We're all adopted. We were strangers to him. We were foreigners into his kingdom. And he welcomed us into his eternal family, made us his legal heirs. And we can see a beautiful picture of this in the story of Exodus, as he rescues the Israelites out of slavery and establishes them as his people and him as their God. And several times after he rescues them, He tells his people, remember that you yourselves were once foreigners in the land of Egypt. Remember that you were foreigners to me, strangers to me. And so treat the foreigners now among you with dignity and respect. And in Exodus 22, he specifically includes orphans and widows, the ones most marginalized and neglected and without protection. And he says to his people, offer care in any way that you can. And in his spirit, his image inside of us is that assurance of the sonship. And it gives us the ability to bring the Father's heart with us to the world. That moment with Amelia's birth mom was just a beautiful picture of God's heart for us. She got to experience the Father's heart for her through Barrett. Something she's never experienced in her life, and she may not ever experience again. I pray that but the reason she was in that position is because no man in her life, her father included, ever treated her the love and respect that she deserved. That moment was a gift from God to her. And I believe that's what we're called to do in the world, bring that Father's heart with us wherever we go and share it. But reminded we can't give what we don't have. My job is to know the Father's heart first of all for myself, and then to share it with my family and with my community. And if I had to pick a favorite verse in the whole Bible, it would be 1 John 4:19. We love because he first loved us. And I can't remember where, but I heard a paraphrase, it might have been the Message, that says, we have love to give away because he first gave us love. We were empty before we received his love for us. But now that we have his love, he's begun the process of healing our hearts, his hard places in our hearts. And then we can turn around and bring that love and healing with us to the world. So I want you to just think about, just keep this question in your mind. Who in your life has shared the Father's heart with you? Just make note of that. See where look back in your life and see where he's used the people around your community to share his heart with you. And then how are you turning around and sharing what you've received with your family and your community? Back to James 1:27. Religion that God our Father accepts as pure and faultless is this, to look after orphans and widows in their distress and to keep oneself from being polluted by the world. Every time I read this, I've been reading this section for a while lately. That ending, keep oneself polluted by the world, or don't let the world corrupt you. Or even in our leaflet today, there's another variation of that phrase. It just always makes me, it seemed like an abrupt, odd way to end. Like, that concept isn't new. Don't be corrupted by the world or protect yourself from the world. But I was curious why he's attached that on to the same thought of what pure religion is, caring for orphans and widows specifically. And so I wanted to read on to get more context, to zoom out a little bit like you were talking about. And sometimes what I do is remove chapter numbers and verses to just see if the thought continues on without that mental division in my head. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But in this case, I think it does. It helped me to understand and get a little more context. So moving on to James 2, my brothers and sisters, believers in our glorious Lord Jesus Christ, must not show favoritism. Suppose a man comes into your meeting wearing a gold ring and fine clothes, and a poor man in filthy old clothes also comes in. If you show special attention to the man wearing fine clothes and say, here's a good seat for you, but you say to the poor man, you stand over there or just sit on the floor by my feet, have you not discriminated among yourselves and become judges with evil thoughts? Listen, my dear brothers and sisters, has not God chosen those who are poor in the eyes of the world to be rich in faith and to inherit the kingdom he promised those who love him? But you have dishonored the poor. Is it not the rich who are exploiting you? Are they not the ones who are dragging you into court? Are they not the ones who are blaspheming the noble name of him to whom you belong? So I think of this as kind of a cautionary tale that James gives, illustrating how the world sees and decides value, who is valuable and worthy of their affection and honor. And in the end, I wonder if there was a little hint to the teaching of the parables in Matthew on the kingdom of God that ends with, this is Matthew 20:16, in the same way, the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And as I was talking through this a few weeks ago with Barrett, he was like, yeah, it's like that idea of the upside down kingdom. You know, in this world, God's kingdom values get turned upside down. What God values is devalued, dismissed, and what God loathes is exalted. Being in this world, but not of it, now that we're adopted children, we have to consciously and intentionally turn that kingdom mindset, kingdom values back to their rightful order, just like taking an upside down cup and turning it back right side up. So I think what James is saying and what I think I'm getting out of this scripture and this context is that caring for orphans and widows, and I believe we can insert here anyone who's marginalized or pushed to the side or outside the protection of a family or a community. Caring for these people is evidence in our life that we have a right side up kingdom view in our life, that we know God, we know his heart for us, and we're now walking out that heart and sharing it with the world. It shows that we're not just giving to the poor to make ourselves look good or to get a tax break at the end of a fiscal year, but rather it's a lifestyle of surrender lived out of love and gratefulness for our Father. It's a hard and messy life, to be sure. The more I walk it, the more I see how much I needed this own work in my own life. I signed up to adopt a little baby girl and didn't really have the heart to do that well. And I believe I had the right motives. Very ignorant, but I had the right motives to the extensiveness of what this would call me to. But had I not sat with someone else in their trauma and their distress, I would not have been at the place to see how much I needed that, how much I needed God to sit with me in my trauma and my distress and have his Father's heart heal me. So that's what I wanted to share with you. That's the Father's heart for each of us. So just encourage you to begin by letting him, if you haven't already, or maybe do it again. I think we need to do this often. Let him, just sit with him and ask him to come sit with you, and just sit with you in any place that's hard or you're still dealing with, that's painful, and just let him be there with you. And then let him show you who in your life, in your family, in your community, he's calling you to replicate that, bring that to them. So I wanted to just give you a little update on Amelia. We kind of stopped at that moment when we took her home from the hospital. We were about to take her home from the hospital, and she's now 5 years old. You've probably seen her running around here with us. And I wanted to talk a little bit about, just give you a glimpse of indiscriminate attachment. Attachment is something that Haley talked about really well a few weeks ago. But specifically with Amelia, we kind of honed in and noticed what we're dealing with her. And I wanted to share that with you because I want you to see what that looks like at church and how you can be a community for her and love her in a way that's helpful for her. So indiscriminate attachment or insecure attachment basically just means she hasn't securely attached to us yet, even though it's been 5 years. We're still struggling with that, and part of that is my fault, not having a secure attachment to my family and education. But now that we are learning and knowing better, we're trying to do better. But it's also a part of her growing up, you know, when they're babies, just strap them onto you, keep them close, keep them in a stroller. But as she's gotten older and been able to walk and run and we've given her freedom, we see some of these red flags popping up. That clue is into she's not ready for this much freedom. She's not ready for this much separation from us because she's not securely attached to us. So indiscriminate attachment basically means that when we go into a public place with other adults, she's not securing her attachment to us as her primary caregiver, that she begins to get flustered and look to everyone around her to see who's going to be her caregiver. And she will latch on to someone else. And we've seen her do this in Lowe's, in a grocery store. Those are the places where it's most alarming because we know or we don't know this is a safe person. Here, we've had to let her have a little more freedom because we know you guys are safe people. But we're making a few changes because even though you're safe people, we see that she needs to be securing her attachment to us before we can let her receive care, appropriate care from the people around her. So this looks like when she comes in, first thing she asks for, she wants a hug. I'm gonna go give that person a hug. So she's seeking physical care from people. And normally that's fine. You know, we want her to be affectionate, you know, but she'll give you a hug. And then she just like latches on and she'll talk to you about what you're wearing, just carry on conversation. But it gets increasingly invasive. I don't know if that's the right word, but she wants your jewelry, she wants to hold your jewelry, she wants your cell phone, she wants you to take a picture of her, she wants to see your purse. That's what this looks like, you know, to a 5-year-old. And so, you know, me stepping in at that point isn't me just keeping her from imposing on you. And a lot of times her body language is just, it's her back's to me, she zones out my voice, and she's completely latched on to that person to see if you're gonna be her caregiver now. It's for that moment. It's also because, you know, a deeper established relationship, especially with mom, is hard. I'm asking her to do hard things every day. So the excitement of a stranger and someone, oh, maybe this person will give me care, but not require all these hard things from me, that's also appealing. So you'll notice for a while we haven't been putting her in the nursery, for example. We keep her in the pew with us, and that's not because we don't trust the nursery. It's just because we see that in public places she needs proximity to us. That's what she needs. And we will have her physically tethered to us, holding our hand so that she can interact with you, but still be consciously and physically aware of her caregiver, mom and dad. So she'll try to run, she'll try to escape, she'll throw fits because she doesn't like that. But I thought just giving you a little bit of that context will help you know what's going on with her, and also so that you can watch her grow and see her become more secure. So does anybody have any questions about that? Did that make sense?
So my question would be, how should I respond?
Okay.
You know,
Yeah.
What's the best way?
So right now, conversations with the 3 of us, and still, like if she asks you a question, defer to me to answer. Like if she asks to see your phone, I'll probably say, no, thank you. We don't need to see her phone. And right now, it's not because of COVID, we're just not letting her hug people.
Right.
Even though we know you guys are safe, we just see that that's the first thing she goes to seek care from someone else is to get a hug. And so eventually we'll get back to that place, but right now it's just going to be keeping mom or dad in the loop of whatever conversation or interaction you have, and just keeping it distance.
I want to know.
Yeah.
Because I'm an effort worker.
Yeah, I know.
How
is this affecting the boys?
Adoption in general,
No,
or
the situation with her.
the attachment, yeah. And it's a good question. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. They seem to be doing well. They, you know, sometimes people say, oh, Amelia, you know, she's the princess. You know, she's got 3 older brothers, but someone that say she's a warrior princess. Like she holds her own. She fights back. She will not be forgotten or pushed aside. So I don't know. She's their equal, you know, in terms of temperament and how they interact. Does that, I don't know if that answered your question.
I was thinking more in terms of the attachment, because
Okay.
they're obviously, but yes, they're attached to you, but they have
I
a little
see.
freedom.
Yes.
So I'm just wondering if,
Like, do they understand?
maybe that's a good question.
I probably have not talked to them enough about that. I probably need to. Amelia definitely notices the difference of what her brothers are allowed to do and what she's not. They're allowed to go to class, but she's not. So far, she's been okay with it. There hasn't been too many fights over that. She's very vocal. She'll tell me if she thinks something's not fair. So, yeah, good thing for me to know.
How old are the brothers?
So Lee, our oldest, is 11. Philip is almost 10. Elliot is almost 7, and Amelia's 5.
Thank you.
So, more of a comment than a question, but we have 2 attachment issues in our work, with children dealing with attachment. And our youngest, Ro, is similar to Amelia. She will crawl on someone's lap and she'll be like, she'll even say, "Are you going to be my mom?" Like, she will make comments like that. And I'll be like trying to get her back, and he'll be like, "No, it's fine,"
Yeah.
because they want to love on her.
Yeah.
And I think it's the not understanding that it's okay for you, it's not okay for her. So if a parent comes and takes a child away or something, we're not trying to be mean. We're not trying to. It almost looks like you're denying the child affection, but you're actually providing them with security and knowing where they should go. So my 5-year-old is different. It's a scale on attachment, and he's higher where we have established attachment with him, but he basically doesn't attach to anyone. And she attaches to everyone. Like, if you sit still for 5 seconds, you're her new best friend, and she's gonna go home. So it's interesting.
So how does this play out if you all need respite care? Like, how do you have babysitters?
Yeah, that's difficult. Or school, she's in kindergarten. She's now gone from me 5 days a week. It's hard. It's hard. You just try to do the best you can with the time you have with her and pray. I'm seeing some of these same attachment responses come out at school with her teachers and the adults that are there. With babysitters, we have grandparents who, that's really the only people who babysit her. But I still see these things happen when we go to their house. It still plays out everywhere we go with any other adult. So, yeah, we just have to do the best we can in the time that we have. We don't go on dates enough because of that. So.
This is going back to your story about the adoption itself. I think of that phrase where it said, courage is grace under pressure. How did you find the grace when that moment came up, you were about to sign, and it looked like it was all going to be taken away? How did you get through that without clutching or being paralyzed in fear, letting it unfold, trusting God through it? That's what you did, but can you tell more about that?
Yeah, I think I relied on Barrett. Several times through this process, I felt like the emotions were too heavy. I felt like my heart couldn't handle it. But he just was there to remind me, we're all in. We've committed to this, we're all in, whatever it takes. So, I relied on Barrett. We texted friends. We texted Haley and Sean to pray for us. Some friends that knew what were going on, but we didn't have to explain too much. So when we said, please pray, they had a little bit more insight into how to pray. And yeah.
It's hard to say much to follow up to that, except that I would like to know that the Redeemer community is also all in on this, on supporting the families that have chosen to do this. And Kim and I have been working on several different options, several different ways to do that. I'll present them today, but they're going to be at that ministry fair on the 26th. There'll be sign-up sheets. They're out there today, but there's no obligation to sign up this quickly. But as Rebecca alluded to last week, I came into this and approached the families with the idea that they were going to say, oh, we need people to donate clothing, and we need diapers, and we need, lots of physical things. And the answer was no. What we really need most is, one, understanding. We need to educate the congregation, which is where this class came from. And secondly, we need people to pray for us. So one of the main things that we're going to ask for is a small group of people who will commit to continually being in prayer for these families, but also to be available if a family has a specific urgent need, that you can be called and say, please pray now today for this. So that's one of the main things. A second thing is some of the physical needs. Sometimes the family will need a meal if they've got a court date or something going on, or a ride somewhere, or just some help of some kind. So we want a team of people who are available to do that as well. And then a third thing is the possibility of being something like a mother's helper, where if a family's going to the beach and an extra set of eyes and hands would be really helpful, are you someone who could be called on to come alongside a family and to help in that way? So we have several different options. We're a small congregation, so we're going to start small, but I'd really like this to be an ongoing commitment that we have to care for these families. I was reminded that, in the early Roman Empire, when the church was just getting started, the mic's going in and out. When the church was just getting started, one of the things that was remarkable about the Christians was that they would go around and they would find and pick up and care for the babies that had been abandoned. In the pagan culture, if you didn't want a child, you just put them out for exposure. If it was a girl, if there was something wrong with it, if they were born under the wrong stars, and you didn't want this child in your family, you just put it out on the rocks and left it to die. And the Christians would go and find the children and raise them. And that was such a profound witness to that pagan culture, that this religion was something different. There was a God behind it who is a God of love and a God worth serving. And I feel like we are very much in that same position today. We live among a culture that regards the children as expendable. And we as the church have a chance to stand up and say no. Not everyone is called to do what Barrett and Andrea are doing, or what Rebecca or any of the people who have spoken have chosen to do, but we can all support that work and be part of that witness. So I really encourage you to think about, to pray about what you can do to make Redeemer a community that is all in on caring for these children. So thank you for coming to this class, and don't forget to come next week, because we've got an awesome class starting on knowing the God that we serve, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Do we really know him? So I hope you will come back for that, even though it's a different way of looking, but it's all a way of looking at the same thing, which is what is the heart of God. And we need to learn it both ways.
I just say one
Yes,
thing.
Kim, please.
As I was praying this week over the class and over all that we've been learning together, what I heard the Lord say over and over and over again was, make room in your hearts, make room in your hearts. And so I didn't know how much what you would share today was going to resonate with that. But thank you for sharing so vulnerably. And my heart for you all is also, we're only a small percentage of our larger church, even though it's a small church. So you all are entrusted now with this information. And if you come in contact with someone who says something in your spirit, you know the answer. Whether it's somebody complaining, I'm just off the top of my head, I have heard people complain about loud children in church. And I'm not talking about Amelia. But if you happen to hear something like that, you could offer another perspective in a loving way. And it will help to spread this all in and what we're about. It's not because parents are trying to be disruptive, or, may I offer you another perspective that maybe we don't know, something else that's going on. So, I'm just so thankful so many of you have chosen to participate and learn and hear the stories. That's the other thing, like having a safe place where the stories can be told and received. I mean, we've just been given a family's most precious witness, and we get to help them carry that. And just allowing that to be told is huge. I know for me, just being able to share what I shared last week was hugely a blessing for me. So thank you for hearing the stories, and thank you for being all in. So let's just end this time in prayer. Thank you, good Father, for inviting us on this journey with you. Thank you for the stories. Thank you for the families. Thank you for this church body that you entrusted to carry these stories and to love these children and to love these families. Would you make us one? Would you show us your heart and invite us each day into that journey, and give us eyes to see and ears to hear what you would have us do, what it looks like to be your children, loving your children. In your precious name we pray, amen.
Yeah, I wanted to make one quick comment about like babysitting and respite, because it's come up a few times. I know last week we were asked after the service, you don't have to have any special training to do babysit or respite up, and if they're adopted, they're your children, so that's the parent. In foster care, you have up to 72 hours before you have to be background checked. So there is some leeway there. What we have found with dealing with attachment issues is it's actually better if the child is babysat in our home. Because then it's always like, mom and dad are coming back, you're in your same bed, your same routine, not I'm now in a big home. Our children being older, when they came into care, sleeping in a new bed can be very triggering for them. So we try to, I have teenage children, so often our needs are met. But if for some reason they're not, it's definitely much easier to have someone watch them in our home.
Thank you so much, Andrea. Thank you. That was lovely. It really was.
I didn't realize we posted Friday afternoon story. Our call for attention for Friday afternoon. Right before the weekend.
I knew a little bit of a story like that.
I know, I just know. I didn't know how much it happened on the church. How quickly. And then you were in the delivery room.
Yeah. My daughter's so powerful. Just like, I sometimes think, oh, my goodness, grandma, I want to be. But I just keep thinking back to I'm gonna love her. I'm gonna screw up, but I'm gonna love her. Oh, and I think even I can feel, my friend Marshall Barr says, you can feel like your kids are working hard on you. And it's so hard to battle that. It's like, this
This is not saying, I'm not saying.
Jay.
I remind myself essentially.
Like there's something I remember the first time having minister and like a religious class, and I saw a group coming from all the years of the heart, and I
I didn't see it. So that's it.
You gotta stop the recording.
I'll connect with you.